grew up with a mother who had access to the industry, and I physically have a certain look, or I'm a certain type, and there were parts that line up, and I got lucky. I got lucky when I was getting commercials. I got lucky when I got the Hardy Boys.
As Craig Pomeroy on Baywatch, he built his entire career on a sense of calm reliability. But long before that public persona took hold, he shared 14 years of marriage, 2 adopted children, and a complex history with Kirstie Alley. Time shifts how we talk about loss, and Parker Stevenson, well into his 70s, has finally found the honesty to speak about it all. Here is the truth of that time. How did Parker Stevenson and Kirstie Alley find each other long before fame felt like a daily reality? 2 very different people crossed paths at a Los Angeles bar in 1981. Kirstie Alley spotted Parker Stevenson from across the room and told her roommate right then that she would give anything to be with him. There was one hitch. He was already there with a date. She walked over anyway. What kind of guts does it take to approach a stranger who is clearly taken? Stevenson was already a known face, having found early success on the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew mysteries. Alley, meanwhile, was piecing her life back together after a previous marriage and a personal history that had changed her entirely. They were an unlikely pair. She loved râpé vegetables with religious focus, smoked, and practiced Scientology. He preferred classical music, fought a sugar habit, wouldn't touch a cigarette, and identified as an Episcopalian. On paper, nothing matched. So why was the connection so instant? Stevenson later reflected on that meeting, admitting he felt burned out at that point in his life, while Alley carried a wild conviction and joy in everything she did. Her energy felt like exactly what he needed. 2 people moving in opposite directions somehow collided at the perfect moment. Was it luck or something deeper? Despite those differences, or perhaps because of them, things moved fast. After dating for about 2 years, the pair eloped on December 22nd, 1983. Stevenson later described their dynamic as exact opposites in nearly every way, from politics to diets to cars. He admitted those differences made the relationship interesting, even as they created real friction. Could 2 people built so differently actually make it last? Or were the cracks there from the start? Marriage brought a new chapter, but also a quiet struggle that played out far from the cameras. Alley suffered a miscarriage early in their marriage. It was a loss she later detailed in her memoir, recalling the agony of accepting that the pregnancy was over. She said her body continued to act as if she were still pregnant for months afterward. That kind of grief rarely hits the news, yet it changes everything that follows. How do you recover from such a private pain? While living your lives in the public eye, recovery for them arrived through parenthood, pursued a different way. In 1992, they adopted a son, William True Stevenson, who went by his middle name. 3 years later, they welcomed their daughter, Lily Price Stevenson. Neither adoption became a media circus. They simply became parents fully and without hesitation. For a couple defined by their differences, raising children together was the one project where their goals finally aligned. Their household was a mix of wild luxury and eccentricity. They split time between massive estates in Encino, California, and Maine. And Alley's love for animals turned their homes into a sort of sanctuary, with dozens of pets roaming the space. Their annual Halloween parties became legendary, costing tens of thousands of dollars and pulling in huge crowds. But beneath the glamour, something else was quietly shifting. How long can 2 people hold on when admiration starts turning into frictions? Career pressures only added to the tension building beneath the surface. Alley's profile exploded with her role as Rebecca Howe on Cheers, a part that won her an Emmy and a Golden Globe, making her one of the most recognizable stars on television. Stevenson, meanwhile, was navigating a difficult industry shift, moving from teen idol status into more mature character roles, including a turn. Alongside Alley herself in the 1986 miniseries North and South Book 2, where they played siblings on screen despite being married in real life. Sharing a set sounds romantic in theory. In practice, did it work? Blurred lines that made their partnership harder to sustain. By the mid-90s, that friction grew impossible to ignore. Setting the stage for an ending, neither saw coming when they first locked eyes across a crowded Bar more than a decade before, why they actually split reveals so much more about who they were. Stay with us. The divorce that shocked everyone, the conversation around Kirstie Alley, and Parker Stevenson almost always circles back to the same question. How does a marriage built on such magnetic chemistry quietly collapse after 13 years? Both insist it had nothing to do with betrayal and everything to do with a distance that grew slowly enough to go unnoticed until it was permanent. In November 1996, after 13 years together, the couple filed for divorce. Both cited irreconcilable differences. Their joint statement insisted that despite the split, they intended to remain devoted parents and close friends going forwards. Public breakups rarely sound that composed. Was the calm tone genuine or simply the version too skilled? Performers chose to present Alley, addressed the rumors directly in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, stating plainly there had been no infidelity on either side, and the real issue came down to differing goals in life. Stevenson echoed that sentiment, agreeing he and Alley were exact opposites, which made the relationship exciting at first, but ultimately proved difficult to sustain as a marriage. When two people admit publicly that nothing scandalous ended things, what does that say about how ordinary heartbreak feels? Behind the public statements, the legal process moved with far less grace. Stevenson's initial filing sought custody of their two children, then 5 and 3, along with $75,000 a month in support. Negotiations dragged on for more than a year before a final decree arrived in May 1998, dividing assets that included their sprawling 21-bedroom estate in Maine. Painful as it was, both parents managed to keep the worst of it away from their children. How many divorcing couples manage that kind of restraint when money and pride are on the line? 16 months after the split became official, Stevenson gave People magazine a rare glimpse into where things stood, admitting that he and Alley were not friends at that point, but that they still spoke regularly about their kids. That honesty mattered. Plenty of celebrity exes claimed friendship publicly while privately avoiding each other entirely. Stevenson chose a more complicated truth instead. Religion added another layer of separation. Neither anticipated it when they married. Alley had been a committed Scientologist throughout their relationship, and Stevenson, raised Episcopalian, never fully embraced that world. Reports indicate Stevenson stepped away from any connection to Scientology following the divorce, severing one more thread that had as quietly connected and divided them simultaneously. Could a relationship survive when even spiritual life pulled in two different directions? What followed the divorce was neither full estrangement nor easy friendship. The two attended their children's milestones together when needed, coordinated holidays without major incident, and avoided the kind of public mudslinging that defines so many celebrity breakups. Stevenson moved forward with his career and photography, while Alley continued acting, eventually building an entirely new chapter of fame through reality television and weight loss endorsements. Their paths rarely crossed in the spotlight again. Yet neither one ever spoke of the other with real bitterness. Financial life after the split reflected the scale of what they had built together. Stevenson reportedly walked away with assets exceeding $6 million as part of the settlement. The couple's massive Maine estate, an 18,000 square foot property they had purchased years earlier for around $2 million, eventually sold for nearly $8 million in 2001. Numbers like that rarely capture what a divorce actually costs two people emotionally, but they do show just how thoroughly intertwined their lives had become by the time everything came apart. That restraint would matter more than either could have predicted, because decades later, one final chapter remained unwritten. The years that followed tested both of them in ways neither expected. And what came next changed everything. Stay with us, building new lives while staying connected. After the divorce became final, both Stevenson and Alley faced the challenge every formerly married couple with children eventually confronts. How do two people build separate futures while still showing up for the family they created together for nearly 2 decades? Both manage that balance with more grace than most expected from two famous exes. Stevenson largely stepped back from. He chased lead roles for a while, then gravitated toward directing and guest spots. Photography became his main focus. It was a childhood hobby, finally getting his full attention. He kept busy with shows like Melrose Place and later Greenhouse Academy. Meanwhile, he was building a photography portfolio that revealed a totally different side. For a guy once tagged as a teen idol, this pivot toward the quiet stuff said a lot. His personal life changed too. Stevenson kept his dating life private until a chance connection turned everything around. He and chef Lisa Sean became neighbors in a beachfront duplex. One borrowed pot was all it took. It started there and quickly became something much more permanent. Stevenson later mentioned that Sean brought the pot back 2 days later, filled with the best chicken soup ever. Funny how the biggest things often start with the smallest gestures. They married on September 29, 2018, at Demetria Vineyards in Los Olivos, California. A honeymoon in Israel followed. Stevenson always speaks highly of the career Sean built, including her 7-year run as a private chef for Derek Jeter. Two people with totally different professional lives found a rhythm in good food and a quiet shared partnership. Meanwhile, Alley followed a very different path. She kept acting, gained new fame through public weight loss campaigns, and eventually dived into her own reality series. Even after their official split, the connection between her and Stevenson never really faded. The two became grandparents together in 2016 when their son True had his first child, William True Parker. Then came their daughter Lily, who welcomed a son named Rip Woodrow Graham in 2021. Grandparenthood kept their lives tied together more than almost anything else. By the early 2020s, Alley moved to Clearwater, Florida, settling into a life centered on her animals. She was looking for something more real than the industry that made her a household name. She had admitted in interviews that marriage wasn't really her strength, looking back on her past with total honesty. She never claimed to be an expert on lasting love. That self-awareness, mixed with her classic humor, is why audiences loved watching her navigate fame and weight struggles. Stevenson stayed settled in his second marriage. He kept working, though he became more selective, focusing mostly on his photography and his family. His art had grown into a serious second career, with his work sold in his own studio. Two people who once shared a 21-bedroom mansion were now living in totally different worlds. But the threads connecting them through their kids and grandkids never truly unraveled. Neither could have predicted how fast that stability would be tested. In 2022, everything changed. Without warning, Parker Stevenson had to face a loss neither of them ever saw coming. And his reaction told us more about their history than years of interviews ever did. Stick around for the details. Parker Stevenson speaks out. News broke in December 2022 that shocked everyone. After 4 decades in the spotlight, Kirstie Alley was gone. Her children True and Lily announced she died after a brief battle with colon cancer. She was 71. The news caught almost everyone off guard, especially fans who thought her health battles were all in the past. Stevenson responded right away. There wasn't a hint of the old bitterness that had clouded their history years ago. He shared a throwback photo from the 1988 premiere of her film, Shoot to Kill. He wrote a message directly to her expressing deep gratitude for their years together. He thanked her for their 2 beautiful children who are now parents themselves, and simply said he would miss her. It turns out grief has a way of turning complicated history into something much simpler. The tribute went viral because of what it revealed about how Stevenson finally viewed their time together. No mention of the divorce, no old scores to settle, just pure gratitude for what they built. After a marriage, a divorce, and decades of co-parenting, what finally remains when one person is gone. Other voices joined in that week, adding even more perspective. Alley was so much more than her iconic screen roles. Her Cheers partner Rhea Perlman remembered a woman whose joy knew no limits. She recalled wild sleepovers with treasure hunts and massive holiday parties that brought the entire crew and their families together. John Travolta, her close friend, and Look Who Is Talking co-star, called their bond one of the most special connections of his life. Jamie Lee Curtis remembered her as a comic, powerhouse on screen, and a devoted mother at home. Ted Danson, who worked alongside her for years on Cheers, Watched an old episode on a plane, recently struck by her gift for being moving and hilarious at once. Every tribute revealed a woman whose warmth lived far beyond the fame. Almost a year later, during a November 2023 interview, Stevenson shared a deeply reflective look at losing his ex-wife, moving past the initial shock into a space of lasting perspective. He called her passing a genuine tragedy, especially for their children. No one is ever truly ready for that kind of loss. He admitted the experience forced his kids to grow up far too fast, a shift for True and Lily that he could never reverse. That level of raw honesty is rare, even years after the fact. That same conversation gave Stevenson room to talk about his own life since their divorce and how he and Lisa Schoen built a marriage founded on shared creativity and deep mutual support. Even while sharing his current happiness, the talk kept drifting back to Alley, the children they raised, and the grandchildren now carrying both their stories forward. Some connections, even after they officially end, never stop shaping who a person is. What makes Stevenson's words so striking is the complete lack of effort to rewrite their history into something clean or simple. He never pretended. Their marriage was perfect, nor did he sugarcoat the pain of their divorce. Instead, he painted a picture of two people who clashed on core issues, yet still managed to build a family that outlasted the romance by decades. Why does that kind of brutal honesty feel so uncommon among celebrities? Their 3 grandchildren now carry the legacy of a 14-year marriage whose reach stretched across 2 more generations. True, and Lily, raised between 2 homes that never stopped working together, have kept their parents' history mostly private. Perhaps because there was never enough scandal to invite the constant glare that follows other celebrity families. That lack of drama says far more about Stevenson and Alley's co-parenting than any trashy tabloid ever could. As of 2026, Parker Stevenson's net worth is roughly $10 million, earned from over 5 decades in front of and behind the camera, and bolstered by his passion for fine art photography. Yet for a man whose resume covers teen, mysteries, primetime soaps, and one of television's most famous lifeguard teams, the story that really sticks with people has nothing to do with ratings. It has everything to do with how he chose to honor a complicated marriage that could no longer be changed, only remembered. Parker. Stevenson's thoughts on Kirstie Alley remind us that even relationships marked by struggle can leave behind a sense of real gratitude. Their story, two opposites who built a family against the odds, speaks to anyone who has loved someone they just could not stay married to. We hope this look at their lives offered a different perspective. If you found this story meaningful, please like the video and subscribe for more deep dives into the stars you love.